The Knicks got one of the most potent bench options in the league. He was going to become the sixth man of the year this season. Prove me wrong. Hit that rock. Before we get started, make sure to hit the like, subscribe to the channel. Make sure to hit the dark notification bell to get each and every notification for each and every video I put out there. Also visit underdogfantasy.com using the code word Legion or LOK to get matched up to $100 on your first deposit. With the NFL season just starting, is a bunch of beautiful player prop bets that you can make and win a ton of money. Again, you can play the game called Streaks, where if you hit your first two prop bets, the next 9, if you hit those, you can win up to 1,000 times the money you deposit. Again, Streaks is on Underdog Fantasy right now, so go and sign up. Use the code word Legion, LOK, get matched to $100, and play to your heart's desire. Also, play responsibly. So the New York Knicks roster kind of went through somewhat of a shift. One of the more interesting aspects of this new roster is Donte DiVincenzo going to the bench, and I think that may have been one of the more underrated roster shifts this season in all the NBA, because I think Donte DiVincenzo is going to become the sixth man of the year. Now, to give it proper context, Donte DiVincenzo was brought here last year to play from the bench behind Quentin Grimes, but after Grimes' struggle, I believe Donte replaced him around in December, averaging 17.7 points off of 44.6% shooting from the field, 39.7% from three, 77% from the stripe, along with 4 rebounds and 3 assists to go, along with 1.5 steals, all in 32 minutes a night as a full-time starter. Most of these stats would rank as his career high. Now, we know that these stats don't necessarily just translate one for one when you go from the starting lineup to the bench, but he probably has some of the best offensive skill sets relative to other guys on the bench. When you look at it, Miles McBride is a 3-and-D guy versus being somewhat of a versatile creator that you see in Donte DiVincenzo. Donte DiVincenzo is probably a better pick-and-roll asset versus Miles McBride at this point. Got Josh Hart, who's a really good connector, has also garnered some sixth man of the year odds, but he doesn't have the overall shooting and scoring ability that Donte has. When you look at other guys like Cameron Payne, who's a solid player, but I think he's more depth than anything else. I don't really see him being a guy who can be a dynamo player in the fourth quarter, kind of run the offense or be the offense in the middle quarters. He's a guy who can give you a few nice pops here and there, attack the basket a little bit, shoot from the outside, but he's not that guy. And Tyler Kolek, who I'm liking as a playmaker, a so-called TJ McConnell or Dragic, whatever you call him from the bench, still relatively young. And I don't see him as a scoring type. I definitely think he's going to have an impact this year, definitely the next and after, as long as he's not traded for Walker Kessler. And so when you look at Donte DiVincenzo going from the starting lineup to the bench, I don't think there are many other players on the Knicks roster who's going to get in his way regarding usage and how he's utilized on the floor. Now, to add to that, everybody knows that Tom Thibodeau likes to play tight rotations. Doesn't matter the amount of depth or amount of opportunities you give to other guys, young players, IQ versus Alec Burks back in the day. Tom Thibodeau is going to play his guys. And Donte is one of Tom Thibodeau's guys. To juxtapose him to another guy who's a six-man-a-year candidate with the Knicks in the recent past, that'd be IQ. IQ was number 2 in six-man-a-year votes in 2022-23. Averaged 29 minutes off the bench. Donte averaged around 29 minutes, 32 minutes overall. No, overall this season, but 29 minutes off the bench for Donte DiVincenzo. IQ had a usage rate of 21%. Donte DiVincenzo had a usage rate of 21%. And for context, IQ that season averaged around 14.9 points a game, 44.8% shooting from the field, 37% from 3, 82% from the strike, along with 4.2 rebounds, 3.4 assists, and 1 steal. I'll put IQ as a better defender than Donte DiVincenzo, but I thought that they both were very solid with the pick and roll. Donte probably didn't need as much, even though he's not a great isolation scorer either. IQ is not. I thought that Donte is a guy that can probably create a little bit better than IQ. And when you talk about his build over the year versus IQ, or over the years. IQ is a guy that Tom Thibodeau, they had to pare down his game. Remember, he came into the league throwing up crazy floaters, shooting threes all over the place. He was a wild child, for lack of a better word, versus Donte DiVincenzo. You kind of saw his game develop over the years. A guy, he had his struggles in Milwaukee, definitely had his struggles with the Kings, got injured, went to Golden State, refined his three-point shooting. Steve Kerr helped him his three-point shooting. He was also watching Steph Curry play as well too. Picked up a lot of tidbits from him. Became a way better pick and roll scorer under Tibbs last year, where he shot 44% of the pick and roll game, which ranked in the 70th percentile for points per possession off the pick and roll. And so when I look at him, I look at a guy, Donte, who really hasn't really even reached his peak. And another thing to consider, Brunson's probably going to be taking some minutes off this season. He just needs less usage as well too, right? He's sitting on the bench. So even if Donte goes to the bench, even if as Donte goes to the bench, even if the minutes come down, the usage and the reliance on him to create and to score and to be that spark plug is gonna increase as Brunson's usage kind of gets pared down. Again, Brunson signed that contract extension, giving Knicks a lot of money. They want him here for the long term. So I'm pretty sure Tom Thibodeau's getting the knock on the door by the GMs in the front office. Say, hey, you understand that you love Brunson? Just bring it down a little bit so we can kind of conserve him and keep him here for years to come. So I think that Donte DiVincenzo going to the bench is definitely not going to hurt his usage, definitely not going to hurt the reliance on him, even if the minutes might come down. Let's talk about the dependence, or how Donte's numbers look like when Jalen Brunson's not involved. Like I said before, both IQ and Donte DiVincenzo relied on or played better. Their offense was better. The overall team's offense was better when those two were playing alongside Jalen Brunson. Obviously, Jalen Brunson's gravity creates a lot of opportunities on the weak side for Donte DiVincenzo or even an IQ. But when you look at Donte DiVincenzo's numbers this past season, when, say, Jalen Brunson only averaged around 20 points, the guy was averaging 28 points a game. And so I kind of use that barometer of 20 points or less. And when you look at some of these games, Donte DiVincenzo actually put up some solid numbers. He averaged around 13.5 points off of 41% shooting, which is not the strongest, but 35% from three to go alongside 3.4 rebounds, as well as 2.8 assists a game. And some of these games included some stinkers, like the first game of the season where he had 0 points. Obviously, he's coming off the bench. The one on October 28th, where Donte only had around 5 points. But there's some excellent games. Donte, 31 points against Miami near the end of the season. Knicks lost that game. But there's a game near the end of the season, right before that, or near before that, against Brooklyn. Donte put up 31 points off of 50% shooting from the field, in which the Knicks won. Another game where Donte DiVincenzo put up 23 points against the Brooklyn Nets again, where the Knicks won. Another game, 18 points. Donte DiVincenzo put up against the Clippers, a game the Knicks lost. You have other games where Brunson scored over 20 point, the threshold I just mentioned before. Games like the Indiana Pacers, a game that we lost early in the season, December. I think Brunson had like 28 points, but he struggled overall from the field. Shot well from three, like 4 for 8 from outside, but like 9 for 20 to 28, something like that. Something pretty bad from the floor in general. I think Randall also had 28 that game, but Donte had 38 points. Absolutely killed it on his part against the Pacers. The Pacers still killed us like 140 to 128. But another great thing about Donte DiVincenzo is his flair, moment. The big time moments he's not scared of. Obviously, everyone remembers a big time 3 he hit against the 76ers in the playoffs, and you need that from your 6-man here. You need those flair moments. You need those times when everything else is lost, right? Remember that game, Brunson was struggling. He finally hit the 3 that luckily got in, and Brunson at the end in that fourth quarter is chucking some bad shots, basically allowed the 76ers to kind of take the lead. Let's be honest. Donte DiVincenzo comes through, hits that big time 3. Remember, he missed the first 3 he took. They got the rebound back from him, and he hits it. And so you need that from your players, guys who don't fall for the, they don't fall small in the big moment. Remember Josh Hart 2 years ago against the Miami Heat, and the reason why Jalen Brunson wanted to pass him is because Josh Hart was shooting some ugly shots because it got to him. It's just not in his blood. But Donte DiVincenzo, flair for the big moment, can produce in a myriad of ways, and he's fearless. That's what you need from your 6-man of the year. And when you look at how the 6-man of the year award is kind of thought about, there's a lot of narrative built behind the 6-man of the year. I found some interesting tidbits that go along with the Six Man of the Year award winners. Now, one of them is that when you look at the past 10 years, the only time a player has won a Six Man of the Year award and he was on a team that didn't finish at worst fourth in their conference was Lou Williams back in 2017, 2018, 2019, playing for the Clippers. Both those teams kind of were the back end, or say the bottom of the top 10 in their conference. And mind you, he won it back in 2014, 2015 with the Raptors, who were number one in the conference. And so when you look at the teams or the players who win the Six Man of the Year award, one, they have to come from teams who are top of the conference. The New York Knicks, who came in number 2 last year, behind the Celtics, and were looking to be in the top 3, maybe even top 1. And the Celtics kind of falter a little bit. Definitely fit that criteria for Donte DiVincenzo to win it. Another underrated narrative that's probably obvious, but I think we got to talk about a little bit, is the fact that you need a true MVP candidate, gravity guy. The Knicks have that in my done life, Jalen Brunson. So they're set. But when you look at some of the past few winners, Naz Reid last year with the Timberwolves, who was it? Anthony Edwards. But year before that, Malcolm Brogdon with the Celtics, who was the guy being considered for the gravity guy, even getting MVP considerations. Anthony Edwards guy last year. With the Celtics, it was Jason Tatum. The year before that, with the Miami Heat, who was the guy drawing MVP, or maybe not as strong considerations, but being that gravity guy to one of the top playmakers in the league, Jimmy Butler, when Tyler Hero made it. And mind you, they don't care about the defense. They don't care about nothing else. They had top defenses. The Timberwolves were number 1 in defense last year, essentially. The Celtics, the year before, when Malcolm Brogdon won it, they were number 3 in defensive rating. Miami Heat before that were 5th in defensive rating. The league does not care about that. It's about when the gravity guy, the MVP candidate, sits down, who is the guy off the bench, even if other factors come into play as to why that team is successful. And also add the fact that Donte is playing alongside his Villanova cat. Nova Cat wouldn't even call on his brethren, and Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges back in the fold, Josh Hart, the 4 horsemen. You know what I'm saying? The narrative writes itself. All Donte has to do is be as productive with his usage as he was last year, this season, and the award is his. So let's break down some of the candidates that are up for the Six Man of the Year award. Malcolm Brogdon, you playing with the Blazers, come on, dogs. Russell Westbrook, too inefficient of a scorer. You know, the 14, 15 rebound games he had last season with the Clippers is going to help the Denver Nuggets, but he's just too inefficient of a guy, too untrustworthy to really believe he's going to be efficient enough to kind of carry that squad off the bench or coming off the bench. Herbert Jones, solid 3-and-D guy, is a guy that I liked. His 3-point shooting finally popped last season, but got too many bench options. Jose Alvarado, who's going to have the ball in his hands, come off the bench. You got Trey Murphy is another player, as well as, even though I guess Trey Murphy might just be starting. But Jordan Hawkins is a player that I like, sharpshooter, but also a guy I think they trusted to kind of have the ball in his hands to kind of create attacking from the wing, getting into the mid-range. They like his ability, so I don't see Herbert Jones move away from his role. Jaime Haskell is a multifaceted player, but he's a guy who's not really efficient from the outside. Not say he can't improve it, but with Terry Rozier coming back from the neck injury last year, I think that Tyler Hero goes back to the bench and becomes their main, creator. They're basically what he was doing when he won the Six Man of the Year award a few years ago. So I don't see that for Jaime Haskell. Alex Caruso will be a 3-and-D weapon that complements and protects OKC's SGA. Just don't see him taking over the usage away from guys like Isaiah Joe, who they just re-signed, as well as Aaron Wiggins, another guy who they just re-signed. So again, 3-and-D guy. He's not going to be the creator, the scoring dynamo. Karis LeVert is a solid option, a guy who's been often injured. A guy that at one point was being compared to RJ Barrett when he was playing with the Brooklyn Nets. He averaged 14 points last season, 4 rebounds, 5.1 assists with the Cavaliers. He's been relatively healthy the past 2 seasons. He's played about 142 out of 164 games. But again, can they count on him to put out those numbers and put that production in the postseason? Don't be surprised if the Cavaliers start going to Imani Bates, who again flashed in the summer league. If they kind of rely on him a little bit more, obviously your man Donovan Mitchell's re-signed a contract, and so they need to throw everything to win. Buddy Hield, what I saw for the players for last year from Buddy Hield is interesting. It's like they don't really trust him to do what he did in his first season with the Pacers, where I thought that Buddy Hield that first year with the Pacers when he got traded from the Kings, I was like, oh crap, I didn't know he was a playmaker like that. They didn't trust him to. I don't think they really trust him to do as much to showcase his play. They did sign him to a new contract, $38 million for 4 years. But they also drafted Jared McCain from Duke to be that kind of scoring dynamo microwave player off the bench. Obviously, he's a rookie, but they could rely on him heavily. And obviously, they brought back Kelly Oubre. He's supposed to be a 3-and-D guy, but Kelly Oubre, he got the green light in his head, even though he's kind of pared it down a little bit last year. So I'm not sure if Buddy Hield's going to have the trust and the touches he needs to win the award. Another player is Josh Hart. He's a solid connector, but he's not efficient enough shooting-wise, and he doesn't look to score. He's not aggressive in his scoring. He likes to connect and make plays for everybody else, unless need be. As you saw in the playoffs last year, when people getting hurt, Josh Hart would be aggressive attacking the basket. That's just not his game. By the way, the last time a connector won the Sixth Man of the Year award, you want to know when? 2010-2011, when Lamar Odom won it with the Lakers. And so I just don't see him winning it. Now we get into the thick of things. You got guys like Bobby Portis, who's coming to voting, Sixth Man of the Year voting, in third place the last 2 seasons. Bobby's impact is undeniable. He can space the floor. He can eat in the paint. But you got Gary Trent joining. And Gary Trent is a guy who's going to take some touches. Now, Gary Trent in Toronto is a guy that he's annoying because I like his talent. He's a guy that he could give you 18 to 24 points in one night efficiently, and the next game he disappears. But they're going to need that. They're going to need everything for the Bucks. That team is kind of aging. Chris Middleton's getting a little bit older. Giannis is starting to get hurt. So I think that Bobby, as good as he is, I don't think he's going to have as much usage as you would think. I think they're going to be sharing some duties off the bench, Gary Trent and Bobby Portis. But we'll see. I just don't see it happening the same way for Bobby in terms of him kind of ascending and being considered, unless the Bucks truly going to run again. They have to make it right with Giannis and Dame. That combination, it seems iffy. Another player is Norman Powell, one of my favorite bench scorers in the league. Came in 4th place in Sixth Man of the Year voting the past 2 seasons, but his numbers took a dip a little bit last season, going from 17 to 14. You know, that Clippers team, they're kind of in this weird space of like purgatory. They're too good to break it down, but not good enough to win a conference. And so I think that Norman Powell is going to have to share some touches with other guys too, as well. You know, Chris Dunn, who had a resurgent season last year. Another interesting guy, Kevin Porter Jr., coming back to the NBA after, got in trouble for his, DV case, whatever. But Kevin Porter Jr. was a guy who was lighting up for the Rockets. And his last year with the Houston Rockets under Stephen Silas, he averaged 19.2 points off of 44% shooting from the field, 36% from 3, and 5.7 assists. But his game just screams bench bully, a guy who could play make, who could attack. He lives for the big moment versus being a lead point guard. I think that Kevin Porter Jr., a guy that I thought that he should have been traded to a contender years ago, I think that his numbers can pop with the Clippers. I think Norman Powell's chances are dwindling a little bit for winning that Sixth Man of the Year. Now let's start with Naz Reid, winner of the Sixth Man of the Year award last season. A guy who had a really solid season last year, 13.5 points, 5.2 rebounds to go along with 48% from the field, 41% from 3, off of 23% usage, fairly efficient. Solid defense, great backup for the Wolves front court, but the one thing that might get in the way is the guy they just drafted, and that's Rob Dillingham. Man from UK, put on flash in the summer league. Was sloppy at times, didn't put the most efficient of numbers, but definitely a player the Wolves are looking at as, I don't know if it's an heir apparent, but might as well be for Mike Conley. And you're talking about a Wolves team that really hasn't had a backcourt weapon like that for a while. I just think that you're going to have some touches go to Rob Dillingham out of necessity, especially given the fact that the Timberwolves ranked 21st in points per game from the bench last season. And last but not least, Malik Monk, who found a resurgence really with the Lakers, but he started to really flash and show himself last year, or the past 2 seasons, with the Sacramento Kings. Last year, the Sacramento Kings putting up around 15 points on 44% shooting from the field, 35% from 3, 5.1 assists, 3 rebounds. Guy that helped the Kings the year before have literally the best offense in the league. And last season, he was number 2 in Sixth Man of the Year votes, but got into that nasty little injury. I believe it was a knee injury near the end of the season. Also have the arrival of DeMar DeRozan, who I'm not saying, I believe he will start, but you talk about late game situations and how the lineups are going to stagger. I think you're going to have a lot of lineups where once De'Aaron Fox is out, and you're going to have lineups for Malik Monk and DeMar DeRozan. I think DeMar DeRozan is going to be taking the brunt of the usage and the playmaking. And so, unfortunately, that puts a little bit of a clamp on Malik Monk's ability, or maybe his usage. Let's not forget they got Kevin Huerter coming back from an injury sustained at the end of last season, as well as other mouths of feet such as Keegan Murray. Add that to DeMar DeRozan, who's probably going to be one of the late game playmakers alongside De'Aaron Fox, as well as Sabonis. And Malik Monk's chances for the Sixth Man of the Year kind of dwindle, especially given the fact that Malik Monk put up his 15.4 points, 5.1 assists, shooting 44% from the field, 35% from three, off of 26% usage versus Donte DiVincenzo's production at 15 points a game, 2.7 assists, shooting 44% from the field, 40% from three, off of 21% usage despite being in the starting lineup. So that's my video. Just want to make a brief little case for Donte DiVincenzo win the Sixth Man of the Year award. Let me know your comments, your thoughts. Do you think I'm out of whack? Do you think that Tom Thibodeau is going to try to put the ball more in the hands of a guy like Cameron Payne? Do you think that this whole Villanova Cat thing is a little overrated? You don't think that there's a plus multiplier with all those guys playing alongside each other? Do you think that Donte DiVincenzo could reach the heights of what he had in the championship year with Villanova? Let me know your thoughts. Comment once the video's over. I appreciate you guys. This is Gmo, Legion, and KNICKS. Peace, Lou, God bless, and I'll see you guys on the next one.